welcome to this masterclass discussion on financial crime compliance. My name is Brian Caplen, editor of The Banker. I'm here with Tom Scampion, Global Risk Analytics Leader with Deloitte, and with Luc Meurant, who is Head of Banking, Markets and Compliance Services at Swift. So we're now sort of discussing practical solutions to the difficulties that banks face, Luc, and obviously one is to set up some kind of utility service. So can you explain to us how that would work?
Yeah. So clearly there is appetite those days for utilities because, I mean, collaboration is key. There is nothing to be won in terms of being better, more compliant than anybody else. So utilities is clearly important. Now the challenge with utilities is what can you exactly outsource to a utility? You need to look at that in terms of the processes that you want to outsource to a utility and the liabilities that you want to outsource or that you can outsource to a utility. Now, clearly, in terms of kind of outsourcing liabilities to a utility, I think we are not there for financial crime. Liabilities will remain with the banks. I mean, forget about it. You cannot dream of having a utility taking on the processes and the liabilities. But yet, you can still help with the outsourcing of the processes themselves. A good example of that is Know Your Customer, where basically the whole data collection of all the same information on the banks involved worldwide is something that you can centralize, mutualize. There are huge cost efficiency that can be created, but it will always be up to the bank to take decisions on that information. Judgmental activities and liabilities will remain with the banks.
So Tom, I mean, what are the sort of different ways in which you could set up this utility process? Because it's not just one size fits all, is it?
Well, certainly I think the data collection part, maybe you can actually get to a point where there is standard information that we're collecting, which is the facts.
So you have data. One utility provider for all the world's banks?
Well, I mean, there are, at the moment, there's clearly specialisms from the various utility providers who are talking about serving different parts of the market. Swift with its correspondent banking utility, which I think is absolutely of its time. But from that data, you then have some decisions to make. So those are the ingredients from which you then, against your risk appetite, can determine whether or not you want to assess a risk of doing business with a certain client as being high, medium or low, or whatever the calibration is you choose. And I think that bit always retains with the bank because it's a business decision about understanding risk once you've got the facts from which to make that risk assessment.
But look, you must be getting a very different sort of reaction from different kinds of banks. So from what the global banks need from this kind of service and from what smaller banks, in some of the emerging markets need.
But I think ultimately everybody benefits because if you're a global bank, you need to collect information on all these smaller banks. But if you are small banks, you're also multi-bank. You need to give that information to all those global banks. So somehow everybody win. And also what is important is that in those days of de-risking, I think every single bank wants to show that they are good citizens of the financial community. So there is a desire by every single bank, large, small, local, regional, to contribute and really make a statement that they are good citizens of the community. They want to be transparent in terms of their information. So we sense a lot of appetite for that as well.
Okay. Tom, what are banks saying to you in terms of what they need in the utility area?
Well, I think as well as a KYC registry, a KYC utility, which absolutely I think is seen as a good way of standardizing the way in which that data, the ingredients are put into the process. I think there's some good opportunities for utilities around things like sanction screening, certainly around the standards for sanctions screening and both customer screening and transaction filtering. And I think that there is opportunity for utilities to be considered that actually standardize the way in which processes like that might take place.
Right, because Luc, I mean, Swift offers a sanctions screening product as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Tom is spot on. We started with small banks for sanction screening, so somehow there is already a utility. The challenge is, can we develop such a utility for the full community? And of course, the needs of large banks are much more sophisticated than small banks. But I sense, like Tom expressed, much more appetite today to consider that as opposed to a couple of years ago. So I would say stay tuned on that, and we expect some developments on that.
Okay. So we'll look to a lot more developments in the utilities area in future.
For
Thank
sure.
you, gentlemen.